Welcome. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Wisconsin Voices, Be a Voice Radio on WNOV 860 AM 106.5 FM. Uh, hey, what's up? I got
Hey.
my co-host. I'm his co-host. We co-hosting,
Yeah.
whatever, however you want to say it. Go ahead, tell the folks who you are.
Yep, Joe Dre, Policy Director for Wisconsin Voices. Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Yes, we got some more sun today. I'll take it. Hey, since we got them in here, we might as well go ahead and just get to it. We got two
Yeah.
great guests today. Two Yesterday was education. We had two great young leaders in education. Today we got two young leaders in mental health. And in Milwaukee, as we see every day, is something, whether it's what we see in the crime, what we see in the economy, what we see just driving down the street, you see somebody or something affected by mental health in the city. So I think this was another important conversation, and we'll always be having our mental health partners and allies on the show at some point, because it's something that always needs to be talked about in the city. So I want them to introduce themselves, and they can take the mics, whoever wants to go first. So it's up to y'all.
Go ahead, beautiful. Hi, happy Tuesday. I am Shaquan Jefferson. I'm a therapist here in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin metropolitan area at two agencies, Kennedy Circle of Wellness and A New Breath of Life.
And abundant rising, everyone. Sarita Valmont, the voice might sound familiar. I am chronically resilient, holistic chronic pain coach and wellness consultant, award-winning author, Reiki energy healer, also the voice of, and I'm going to say another station, 98.3. That's what Sarita said. And I'm just excited to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. And I am here not only in the Milwaukee area. Basically, I jokingly say, if you got Wi-Fi, you got me. But also, too, I do travel and everything as well. And so that's just a glimpse of me.
Well, ladies, thank y'all for coming. I appreciate it. I think, Joe, since you kicked off the questions, and I think this is appropriate for you to go ahead and get it popping.
Sure.
Whatever you got for them, and I'll tag in whenever it's time.
Yeah, and I did we mention our topic today?
Yeah, I did. I said mental health, but you go a little deeper into it.
Okay, I didn't know, because yesterday we kind of slipped up. I think we forgot at the beginning.
Get it right. Yeah.
Want to make sure we get that in. But
Appreciate that.
our first question today on mental health is: what are some of the biggest challenges facing mental health care access in Wisconsin today?
That's a good question. So I'll start off by saying it's a shortage. So it's not a lot of minority therapists here in the Milwaukee area. So primarily, I think that it's a shortage. So that makes it hard for people to access therapists, because a lot of therapist schedules are full due to it being a shortage.
No, I would say similar, and also too being able to kind of take a step back too, and being able to even identify that there's an actual issue within the person themselves as well too. Where I think sometimes we don't recognize those initial aspects that will actually be like the quote unquote, cry for help situation, where oftentimes you don't even know where to actually access the support that you need, or even know that you need support. You might think that this is just a regular occurrence. So that's another, facet of it as well too. But definitely also too looking at specialties as well, because as I said for myself, I specialize in chronic pain, and you have your own specialties as well too. So then that also can make it a little bit more difficult as well, because if there's only so many people that are doing a certain aspect, that can make it difficult to be able to get the access.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people, a lot of diagnosis, just a lot of people don't get diagnosed because it's it's a lack of that. I mean, you see a lot of people in the city, myself included, that probably could have went to a therapist more during some stuff that happened in my life. But a lot of people, I think, still are trying to get adjusted to this whole new mental health and physical, just taking care of their body all the way around, especially in the Black community. I see, you see this uptick of mental health professionals on TikTok and other places. And I know it's a lot of that is just the vulnerability aspect of it as well, seeing other people. But I know I got a little excited just hearing about, different angles of it. It's, it's real, man. I think, a lot of people, I mean, I look at some of my homeboys, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of us, you see some of them same patterns from adulthood, they, young adulthood, that they don't want to address now in their latter 30s and 40s. And, like I said, that's another group of, people that's been overlooked or are kind of running from it. As Black men as well, or men, period. Yeah. So,
but then you also got to go back though and look at the aspect of why that's happening.
Yeah.
Looking at the fact that when it comes to, even if we're looking like systemic things and things like that, oftentimes it's basically the perpetuation is that, okay, strong Black man, strong Black woman, strong, insert whoever, insert ethnicity afterwards. And it's being able to go ahead and take a step back and being like, okay, yes, I am a strong person, but I do also need to be vulnerable enough to say I do need assistance. But then also too, we got to look at the fact of, okay, is it safe enough for me to even say that I need assistance?
That's real.
Because to be able to heal, you got to be in a safe environment. And if you're not in a safe environment, you're basically in, survival mode. And a lot of us are in survival mode and might not even recognize it just based off of what we're doing. And so the fraction of what you're talking about is a high percentage of survival mode.
Yeah.
So you have to also look at that aspect too.
You're right. And we talked about that yesterday, just within the education system for students being able to have a place of peace and be able to learn at home as well. So, all right, go ahead, Joe. Look, keep it rolling, Joe. Go ahead. Look, I'll take 2 or 3 down the road. You can have the first.
Hey, I'll kick it off then. How can we reduce the stigma that surrounds mental health?
That's a good one. The stigma, just spreading awareness. So I got this thing of what I do. I lead by example. So I wouldn't tell my clients to do something that I wouldn't do. So as me being a therapist, I have a therapist. And so like kind of going back to what you said with like the EMDR, I have a trauma therapist because we still have trauma. We're still in survival mode on the daily because despite of what we go through, we have to put our Superman cape on because nobody's going to save us. So starting off by leading by example and kind of spreading the word. So like even my social media platforms, I tend to make sure I'm posting some inspirational, something to just show people like, hey, everybody is not that way, or we don't have to go back into the old times, kind of what you said, that survival mode. Like I have family that like on a continuous basis that I have to educate, like, yes, this is what it is. Cause a lot of it, especially going into spirituality, you got to pray. You got to pray. Faith without works is dead. And so I always point that out to them every time because it's like, yeah, you can have the faith, but you got to put the work in too. We're still human beings, right? And so just kind of looking at it from that way, but definitely like just leading by example and being the start to change.
And do you find that can be contagious sometimes? Your positive attitude, you're posting things on social media, you're out there with that positive attitude. You see that spread to others as well? Like, maybe someone's having a bad day and they're seeing you over there all positive. Maybe some people are looking at you like, how can she be positive today? Or, maybe share a little bit about that and how that works.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I get a lot of questions here and there when I post things or what I'm doing, especially like with my close friends and family. And I'm always talking about it. It's also a domino effect. So when I see it, especially when I see somebody share a post, like I do something, for an example, on my page, I do something with Motivational Mondays. And so whatever just comes to my heart, I'll post something. Like this time I talked about like whatever attaches to you wins. And it does. Like anything that detached from me is not for you, right? And so just seeing people share that's like maybe they felt that. So I'm like, okay, so I'm touching somebody, so I'm seeing it. So it goes like both ways. It's universal. You'll see it a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I will say for myself, it's also similar to where it's like on a daily basis, I try to, on my social media, I'll go ahead and actually post. The first thing I'll post will be something motivational, just off the gate. Just that way, it's like starting my day off that way, but also to having my own particular routine that I also go through on a daily basis as well, too, where that involves my own spirituality by me being able to go ahead and tap into my mindfulness, being able to go ahead and just, read whatever it is that's inspiring to me and meditate off of that and then move forward. And then I do have my segment, as well, that it's, oftentimes I am providing, some positive information, but I'm also a person too that I keep it real. Like I was just actually going through my own mental health concerns myself because of my father being ill. And I actually removed myself from social media for 2 months because I was taking care of my father. And so then when I came back, I did a live and everything, said, hey, I'm back. But also too, this is what's been going on. This is why I've been, gone. And also being, vulnerable, but also sharing too that, it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. And I think oftentimes because we are in our position, people think that we're automatically like, I'm thinking of toxic positivity and everything like that. Where it's like, nah, like, and I'll say something positive, but I also say too, on the other side of it as well, like, this is how I had to get to this spot to say something positive. Like I have to go ahead and have to pause and basically, go back to my own, particular limits of beliefs that I'm kind of tackling, as well, when you're going through that healing journey and everything too, to be like, okay, you know what, you might have those different things that pop up in your head. Like even this morning, I was like, they really want me to come on here? Like, what am I talking about? Like, they really like, what am I? And it's like, but it's one of those things I'm like, okay, it's number one, like, stop, like what's going on. But it's, being real about it and just saying, hey, there's things that I have to do, as well. But it's like, I'm that mirror also too, where I might be showing someone else something where it's like, they want to be positive, but they don't know how to start or where to go or how to do it. So it's that's, the aspect that I look at as well.
What I noticed too, they love the transparency.
Mhm.
So they love that when you're being open, you could still be positive, but be transparent. I'm like that with all of my clients or mentees, whatever I have. They love that. They respect that because it's like if she's getting through that death or she's grieving, I could do it too.
Mhm.
So people love the transparency.
So it's showing a little bit of vulnerability as
Mhm.
well to your own self, and maybe that in a way that they feel a little empathetic,
Mhm.
that maybe you're empathetic towards their situation as well because you went through it as
Mhm.
the same thing.
No,
Yeah.
definitely. And even just grace with it as well, too. Because
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of being able to give yourself grace during these situations. And I think that that's something that's been difficult, even as a community, to be able to go ahead and do because of how society has things set up where it's like, okay, if you're grieving, you're going through all these different things. It's like, okay, wrap it up. You got 3 days from work. You got to go ahead. And it's like, well,
Mhm.
no, like you want me to come back to work after 3 days after my mother just transitioned? Like, it's like
Yeah.
different, not being realistic, as well, too. So just being able to, look at that as well.
No, that's
Okay.
deep. No, I totally relate to that too. I mean, right. You look at it all the time. I mean, even with I had a best friend that just lost his pops. Just want to send my condolences again to ST Cross's family and the Cross family as well. Which y'all call him Junior. So anybody know ST Cross and Junior as well. And I also just lost my uncle, March 12th, who we're going through the processes of getting him situated for his memorial. So that'd be Terrell Adams from Milwaukee as well. So, just going through a lot of that and you just seeing what your friend dealing with and family, things like that it is a time to for me, I see it as a time. I always try to, when I'm going through these grieving processes, like, you do got to step back. Like you said, somebody did text me, say it's okay not to be okay. You've been strong for everybody else, and I watched my best friend too as well do the same thing. He been strong. He the oldest. We do got to get to that point where we are, being more transparent. I did like that, you say that. And I know that probably takes a lot being in therapy, still opening up and you still, got your stuff going on. I know for you just recently lost somebody, how have you been handling, with your busy schedule? You've been doing a lot lately, and with, with that, condolences to you as well about, the loss of your friend. It seemed like she was very, important and popular to the community. How have you been taking care of yourself and people that in that space that was related to her as well?
That's a good question. Yeah, I've been busy. So with me for grieving, so we have 5 stages of grief, right? So it's anger, bargaining, denial. You go through all of those different stages. I think I went like the first day I went through all 5 of them, right? Just kind of, I'm very a spiritual person. So just going to church, I kind of open up to it with my church family, just like, hey, love on me because you see me looking this way. You don't know what a person is going through. Therapy. So I have therapy. So I went from 1 session a week to twice for now. And the reason I did that, especially because it was secondary trauma. And so you can contest to this as well. Secondary trauma is worse than primary trauma. A lot of people don't know that. And RIP to Lauren Rocket. I want to shout her out because her story, I took her under my wing. She's a part, I always say, like sister, because her sister and her mom is my soror. So I am a Zeta.
Okay.
I'm a part of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And she committed suicide. And so that was really hard for me to even go back to work. And I had a client that also attempted. So I just was like, what is like going on? And so I had to find a way to really like navigate that. So I'm leaning a lot on my comfort people. So I have like 3 or 4 people I've been like, hey, I'm tired today. I also just started Anxiety Med. So I open up with my clients with that, like, hey, it's temporary. This is not forever. So the part that kind of keeps me going is like, this is just a part of you. This is not all of you, but it makes me a stronger therapist, especially I call myself like a baby therapist. I've been doing therapy about 3 or 4 years now, but that was my first time to ever experience it like personal. And I also came back to work with like a client doing that as well. And so it was really hard, but I was able to handle it well. I dissected my response, came up with a safety plan for the other client that is doing well. But yeah, just giving myself that grace too. So like when I don't feel like doing anything, I won't. I'm also in school. I'm a doctoral student. So I take breaks when needed. Like I said, I'll just call people if I start feeling like, feeling a little jittery, but it's not easy. But again, like what I said, being transparent, like there's nothing I will hide. I've been telling all my people, no, I'm not okay, but I will be because this is a part of me. It's not all of me, but this is what's going to make me who I am. And I have her picture hanging up because I could look at her every day to give me that reason why. So I could save another life. Maybe I couldn't have been there. Some things are out of our control, but I know that it's a lot of other people that I can just grasp before it gets that far.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Can we take the next one, Joe?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's do it. What steps can be taken to ensure that mental health services are available to everyone, regardless of their background or income? Did you read that one yet?
No.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I don't think so.
All right. Cool. Just want to make sure I wasn't, doubling back. All right. Y'all got that one?
So you said, say it one more time. So you said,
What steps can be taken to ensure that mental health services are available to everyone, regardless of their background or income? I know that's a sensitive one, but I'm sure that y'all can break that one down.
Right.
Affordability.
Yeah.
Just a lot going on. Is higher up the federal level, the state level, right? It's a lot going on. A lot of things are really getting cut, and mental health is one of those things.
Right.
I would say we have something to consider. I don't know if you do that, the EAP. So that's like kind of going through work and sliding scales. So that's like they're paying the partial amount, but a lot of places don't like broadcast or advertise that because obviously they want you to pay the full amount, right? And we do work hard, but it's something that's still there for a lot of companies. I would say a lot of places should offer that. I also was going to say too, I had this conversation with another therapist I know about like, hey, therapists need to be coming in weekly on other places. So like police officers, teachers, they should have that, even if it's once a month, just to have that access to that.
That's real.
And that should be like written up in a proposal. So like I said, it go beyond our heads. Like right now, therapists, I don't know, I can say for me, I'm kind of scared. I'm like, what are they doing? So I'm always watching every time something, legislative come up, like what is going on? What's going to happen to make sure that we're prepared? But a lot of good therapists, a lot of seasoned therapists, it sounds like you're seasoned, kind of got plans for that to like help clients away, like payment plans. That's another one too. So kind of broadcasting that like, hey, I don't want you to not be seen because you can't afford it. What can you afford until you're able to find like a better job or a better, or you're in a better position rather.
All right, cool.
Well, I would say personally, so mine is a little bit different because I'm actually considered alternative. And so I have private pay.
Okay.
And so that's an issue where then it's like people trying to, do private pay. So what I'm trying to do now is actually work with different like businesses, organizations and things and trying to go that way as well. And being able to go ahead and access and say, hey, let's go ahead and do workshops at your employer. So now, even, people are able to go ahead and get that touch and still, even though they might not be able to come with me one-on-one, like what's going on or even seeing, hey, can we look at your EAP program and see how can we go ahead and make this, more reasonable for people as well too. So being able to kind of look at things and then quote unquote unorthodox way, so to speak, and say, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and have a, more of an open mind to it and say, hey, like, how can we go ahead and make this happen? Do we need to do community events? Do we need to, but also too, if we're doing community events and now we need to remix these because everything seems to be the same. And it's like, we need to bring more creativity back into these things and be like, hey, you know what, we are all creatives. Let's go ahead and bring these pieces out and share like, hey, this is how we can go ahead and also heal in community.
Awesome.
Nice. Appreciate that. All right. Y'all look, y'all know how to answer.
I was gonna say and collaborating because I'm like already like, okay, we on the same way. Like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be talking.
Right. That's what I said. That's what was out there. I was like, I'm surprised y'all ain't met each other yet. Yeah, I'm glad y'all have. I appreciate that. I love networking. I'm all about the silo breaking down, y'all. Don't get it twisted just because it's not the same. Be a Voice Radio before. Ain't nothing changed. We still silo breaking down across the community. I ain't changing none of that. Whether you mental health, you crime stopping, you feeding, you doing whatever you're doing, we are breaking down the silos in Milwaukee because it has to keep going. That's the only way we're gonna make our city better. How would you assess the availability of mental health resources and funding in Wisconsin? Are there gaps that need to be addressed? I think we kind of a little bit, but
maybe more in depth.
A
little
more in depth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What y'all thinking? We got a little time. Y'all want to take a break? Y'all want to answer it on the way back? What y'all on the way back from the break?
We can take a break.
You want to take a break?
Take a break and think.
Y'all want some water? You need some water, Shaquan.
I'm like, I brought my own water.
She got some water.
Look, you see how I like to do this? Water. Look, where's the camera at?
Yeah, right there. Right. H2O people, stop and get you some water today. No sodas, none of that sugary stuff. Dr. Pepper and all the Mountain Dews and diets ain't good for you anyway. Be Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices. We'll be back with Brian and Joe talking to Shaquan and Sarita about mental health.
You guys get me cracking up right before I go back on the air. Welcome back. This is Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices. Joe Dre, Policy Director for Wisconsin Voices. Brian,
Yes,
we're having a great conversation today.
we are. They came prepared to answer questions because they've been on point. But you see, our guests, they ready. But that's the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
point of having passionate people in the work. Because it's easy and it just comes out naturally when you got people that's actually in the work. Like yesterday when we had Tamal and I just had that brain.
Willie.
Willie.
Yeah.
What just happened? Yeah, that little fall.
Little brain fog.
It's a little
Okay.
little brain fog. Yeah, when we had Tamal and I mean they was just they responsive.
Yeah.
They was on point, but that's because they passionate. They've been in the game for a long time in education. So, Joe, you want to answer or was it on me? I don't know.
I think you,
Yeah,
I
you
think
did
you asked,
too.
a, que-
Go
you
ahead,
asked a
Joe.
question before
Yeah.
we went to the break.
We
a
did. That
little
was
bit.
number
Just
4.
maybe you guys could dig in a little bit more about the funding and those funding gaps and maybe some solutions on how legislators, politicians, or even just people out, everyday people can help out with that.
No, very, very good questions. Quite honest, I'm like, do we have how much time do we have left?
It's a very good question.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to like funding and different things, once again, like looking at alternatives.
Mhm.
Like I kind of just mentioned one, being like, okay, if you know that your employer, for example, has a particular budget of $10K that you can be using for health and wellness, being able to go ahead and do those, so side note, I used to work in HR, so I'm going to go into my HR bag for 2 seconds.
There you go.
Being able to go ahead and look at the surveys and things that you've done of your employees and seeing what the top hot button issues are and being able to go ahead and bring in resources to be able to assist those. It's not necessarily saying that you're overstepping, as far as for being involved with your, with your staff or employees or whatever you're calling, whoever you're
Mhm.
working with, but showing that number one, you're actually caring about them and you're trying to offer them a solution. Because oftentimes if you don't know what you don't know,
Mhm.
so it's being able to go ahead and look at the solutions in a different way and saying like, hey, we got to be more creative with our solutions, like I was stating before. And so that would be one. So that way you're having workshops, you're having lunch and learns and things of that nature. So then you're able to go ahead and tackle those issues and then bring other people in as well too. So that could be one way to be able to go ahead and try to help. But then also too, looking at the red tape when it comes to the different, funding and things like that that's out there when we're looking at the grants and things. Like prime example for me, I'm a for-profit business.
Mhm.
There happens to be more options available for nonprofit, but then you have to go a different direction and partner with someone to be a fiduciary agent. Like it's so many different like things where it's like, okay, I just want to do an event that I can bring people, it's like, what you want to do, you have it, but because you don't have like the blood of your firstborn, you can't go ahead
Right.
and get, the funding and things that you need. So then being able to go ahead and say, hey, let's look at this red tape. Let's look at ways that we can go ahead and partner. And let's also at that same time remove our ego.
Right.
When we're trying to do the partnerships. And that's another way that could be able to happen. But then also too, we got to look at the actual systems that are in place as well.
Mhm.
Because to be quite honest, a lot of these systems were not in place for us.
Mhm.
And because of that, it makes it also difficult to then access that funding. And so it's like almost like a hamster wheel, so
Mhm.
to speak, that you
Right.
kind of end up being on because you're trying to find different things. You're like, okay, as soon as you feel yourself getting ahead, then it's like, and then it starts back up again. So those are some of the things I could just think of like off the top of my head that I've recognized, with my own particular journey. And I know you have a lot that you've also, witnessed as well too, probably even similar, as well, if not more.
Yeah, especially like the collaboration, because I always crack this joke. They're like, therapists got money. It's like, no, we sacrifice a lot. Like I said, it's just looking at like different partnerships. So I know I do stuff with the city and the county. So
Mhm.
that's a way that I'm still able to get out there and touch different people outside of just my personal clientele. Another thing, like you said, just partnering, finding people, like really getting out there and seeing what agencies does have that like little bit of wiggle room in their budget to be like, hey, I'll charge this. I usually charge this, but I could charge this just to come in, kind of what I said, like once a month, coming to these different places and doing that way. So it might not be individual, but more so we're still touching those people.
Okay.
Sweet.
Great.
Okay, right. Well, y'all got all right. Joe, go ahead again. I gotta get Joe these questions because he.
I mean, a lot of the questions revolve around the affordability, the availability to pay, because I think at least in my experience, that seems to be one of the biggest hurdles for a lot of folks, other than the stigma of, I'm a tough guy, I'm the man, and
Mhm.
I don't need therapy. I don't, but just like we say, we don't need to go to the doctor and get checked out when we have an ache or pain.
Yeah.
Removing that stigma, but also removing those barriers for cost to a lot of folks. So, are there some other systems that we can do to make it more accessible where folks can, if you need it, regardless of how much money you have in your pocket, you can get the services that you need?
So what I could think of, some things are put in place. So we got the crisis line. You can call the crisis line. They'll do breathing techniques with you. What else? You could be anonymous. So you can call you can call 4 or 5 times a day. So that's one thing that's free. If you're like, hey, I need it immediately.
Mhm.
Their numbers, it's right on Google, literally. Another thing you can do, I think they should do, they should make it a necessity. So like kind of how they do doctor referrals, like if you got like a knee replacement or something, you need something like that to refer you out. I think that therapists should be one of those referrals, and they cover that under the cost of insurance, because it gets really tricky with therapy, insurance, private pay, not private pay.
Mhm.
You got
Right.
sliding scales, all is like, it's a lot. You have to be a therapist to really like grasp the concept of like the financial part of it and the accessibility, because we're there. The thing is, the part of it could be insurance, it could be, like you said, like co-pays. A lot of people are not able to afford that, and like with therapists, we still have to set the boundary that we got to get paid for something.
Right.
So it gets really tricky, but one of them like that's free right away is like crisis lines. They have a lot of like drop-in centers that you could just go in and talk to somebody, especially for like teens. So like Pathfinders, those kind of places have the accessibility if you need it right away. But again, like kind of going back to the point we said, that partnership is really important. Like, hey, your name can be planted in a place, especially if they like you, they'll keep you, they'll find a way to put you in the budget. Another place like I do drop-in hours would be like She Kim. So that's on 27th at Capitol. That's not even far from here. That's literally a few blocks away. I go every other Thursday, and they could just come in. I sit. That way it's free. Some of them are longer, some are short, some is just a question. So definitely like that collaboration piece will be that part to make it accessible, getting our faces out there, especially with minority, because it's not a lot of minority, it's not a lot of therapists, or they'll start to feel burnout immediately.
Do a lot of these schools, or some of these high schools in the city, are they I used to work at Job Corps, and Dr. Wynn used to come to Job Corps and do a therapist session with the students. Do you see a lot of those outsourced therapist sessions, or they usually leaning on the counselors, guidance counselors inside these schools these days? Because, shout out to the guidance counselors and the counselors and all that good stuff. But as far as like a therapist, like, are there more therapists, or do you think NPS needs more contact with more therapists?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm actually I know you were kind of looking at both of us. I'm on the board, the NAF board, actually at Madison High School.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually, speaking with them and kind of seeing like ways that we can incorporate more things and seeing what we can go ahead and do. And so, yeah, there's definitely a gap. But then once again, we're going into red tape.
Yeah.
Because you got to become a vendor. You got to do like, so it's like all these different, pieces and things once again. But I also want to kind of go back to what we were just talking about as well, too. Looking at nonprofit options. Once again, I actually happen to be on another board for Black Girl Space, where they offer monthly free for women.
Nice.
So that's something else that's also, available. So it's being able to once again look at, the things that are, available in the city as well, too.
Nice. 414-444-5253, just in case. If you want to talk to these two young women, professionals in the mental health game, and just get some advice, or just, comments, anything that you want to say. 414-444. I said 44. I said 414-444-5253. Going on to the next, or anything else that you want to add to that part, Joe?
No, I think they answered the question really well.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, they knocking them out the park. Even the ones that's not even on the paper. I think I done asked like 2-3 that's not.
We're going over sliding off.
Yeah, you got to. Hey, look, you got to, man. Look,
that's how, having a great conversation, and that's where it goes.
Yeah, curveballs, right?
Where the conversation leads. So
yeah, I think that in these programs, any program that has a students on site, or any juveniles that need some assistance, there needs to be like a therapist being seen like 2-3 times a week in some type of setting. I know that probably get glue, and I think some of these places, they just don't want to spend the money. They even got it. They may not just want to spend it. But I do agree with that, because you see, I worked at St. Charles when I was they had a therapist that came through, but or a person that would come through, but it was like once a week, and it was more on some like trying to check their temperature to see if they, you know, need to be reprimanded more versus, kind of figuring out if they're mentally in a good space. Dr. Wynn, she was on point at Job Corps, and I'm going to talk to the center director over there, Marlon Page, and see if they have somebody on site. But, just talking to those students, a lot of those students have so much trauma going into a facility like that. I was so many students I used to have to check in, sometimes it'd be 10, 11 students a day. And then, you're dealing with 4 or 5 of them, you can just tell out the gate, and then you look at their addresses where they were from in certain cities in the state, in the country. You're like, oh yeah, this person definitely needs to go see. And some of them have built that relationship with her, and other ones, they avoided it. And then of course you see some of the results, positive and negative, to us. But I think, like you said, you got to be one to step to the plate for yourself. You can't run away from it. If you feel like you got something going on up here that needs to be checked out, you need to, and sometimes the most basic thing for me is the working out segment. Have y'all suggested a lot of that to y'all people? Do y'all suggest working out, or like outside of the the sessions that y'all have? And I know you do different holistic sessions, and I'm sure you incorporate all types of things into yours. What are some of the other things that you may suggest to people as you're talking to them about their mental health?
So there's different forms of therapy. So kind of how you said, like breathing techniques, you could do like working out. Art therapy is one. EMDR is more of a trauma processing, so it's not a lot of talking. So what I've noticed, a lot of people are good at like drawing or doing other things, but they might not want to talk.
Yeah.
And I also have this saying too. I like how you said that. I always tell people, if you taste therapy and see, it will change your life. Like taste it a little bit. Just see what it's really like, so you know what works for you or don't work. Because you'll hear a lot of people say too, like, oh, I'm not talking to nobody. They're not going to help me. I don't trust them. And so much stigma behind it. Like, just taste it and see. And if it doesn't work, a really good therapist, a good educated therapist will tell you like, hey, you have different options. Other than, if you're not a talker, maybe yoga is what you need. That is therapy. Sitting there, you're just being present. You don't want to talk. You already kind of processed what you needed to talk about, right? Or if you're a talker, hey, we could talk. How many sessions you need? What we talking about?
Yeah. I think figuring out what fits you the best, whether it's the working out, the holistic part, do y'all throw the frequencies into? Is that?
I do. I don't necessarily do. I do Reiki, energy healing, but then also I'm currently going through a integrative somatic trauma therapy certification. And so that's where you're actually basically using the body to process the trauma and everything as well, to be able to release it. So being able to go ahead and do something to that effect as well too, but also something that we haven't really talked about yet is also nutrition. So that's a big area as well too, where if you are not fueling your body properly, and I'm not just talking about what you're putting in your mouth either. I'm also talking about, like the media subscribed to, the people that you have around you, all those different things also are affecting your mental health as well too. And then if we even go back even further, looking at, systemically and things like that as well too, and epigenetics, we also got those facets that are also coming into play as well too. So being able to go ahead and even having some of those conversations that could be difficult with your family, to ask questions about how you might be noticing different trends if you're self-aware enough to say like, hey, you know what? I noticed that a lot of the women in our family are just mean. Why everybody mad? Like, what's going on? What's going on? And then you find out like, oh, well, because they might have had different abuse and things that happened that they weren't able to go ahead and process, all these different things that you don't realize until you sit down and actually have a conversation. And sometimes it's difficult. Like, as I mentioned, my father is 86, he'll be 87, and he's currently been diagnosed with dementia and Parkinson's, and I'm trying to ask him different questions about the family because I'm curious. Also, too, I'm a first generation American, so my lineage is a little bit different, as well too. But trying to find out, what has gone on, what has happened, just so in that way I can go ahead now and say, hey, whatever healing and things that I'm focusing on at this moment, I know can impact the next 13 generations. That's actually the most recent data that can actually impact by me going ahead and doing these things. So not only like what I'm doing, but then also too, like even how we say secondhand trauma, there's also secondhand healing. So that way, like what we're doing right now is offering secondhand healing to others, that if they're tapping in and listening and feeling this frequency that we're on right now, we're going ahead and sharing, information for them. And also too, our contacts, like, we're here for the community. We're here for a reason, to be able to go ahead and assist. And so, like you said, the talking, we got the art therapy, you got somatic, you got EDMR, you have so many, you got tapping, like there's really so many different techniques and different types of actual, and I hate to even say therapy, but it's kind of like, it's just like modalities. Let me say that there's so many different modalities that you can go ahead and tap into, even music as well too.
Yep,
And like we
music
said, you know, the maybe might be binaural beats, it might be flutes.
Yep.
You know, I know people are kind of joking about Andre 3000 with the flute album, but when I tell you, put that baby on and let it play, it's gonna change your whole. You know, you're like, wait a minute, I'm calm now. What's going on?
Yeah, he didn't choose that route for no reason, right?
No, right.
And that industry is definitely one that he probably was the best route for him with the way the industry is, big time.
Mhm.
This may be a little controversial question, but it's off the paper. What about like the ashwagandhas and all that stuff of the world?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I'm a plant-based medicine person too, so I'm actually currently doing a medical cannabis certification.
Yeah,
which I understand it is not legal in Wisconsin.
Right.
However, there's different facets
Of course.
CBD and things like that. That was part of what helped me in my healing journey. And so to be able to go ahead and introduce that in a way that's not having so much stigma attached to it once again, but then also looking on the other side of things as far as for advocacy and being able to show how to use things properly, so that way it's in the vein of substance reduction and looking at and harm reduction and looking at it that way as well too. So yes, I have my ashwagandha, got my chlorophyll, got my all the different things that I take, my bladder rag, my sea moss, like all those different things. But then also too, when I say to people, when you're going the supplement route, also make sure though too that you go and get your lab work done.
Okay.
And see what things you might be missing in your body, so then that way you're going ahead and taking the proper things for you. Because sometimes people might be like, oh, you need this and that. It's like, well, maybe you might not necessarily need that.
Right.
But I know, like, for example, for us, even in Wisconsin as a whole, because of it being cold and things, vitamin D, that's like automatic, one right there for you. And then for people of color, iron.
Yep.
That's another, facet to be able to go ahead and look at. And those are things that also are affecting your mental health as well too. Because once again, if the nutrition's not right, your gut is your second brain.
Yeah.
So it's like, being able to look at, I even kind of say that your heart's also another brain too, but that's a conversation for
could we add sleep into that as well?
And rest and sleep and rest. And that's another thing too, because the one thing is that, a lot of times we are not able to rest because we're in that mode of, the quote unquote grind mode and the hustle mode. Mm-hmm. And when you don't rest, you're not able to actually, formulate thoughts and things properly. And you, of course, are, if you don't get enough sleep, you get cranky. It's because you think, your body just needs to be able to go ahead and reset. Mm-hmm. And so those other aspects as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
What about those treatments that people do, like the ayahuasca? Have y'all had clients that went out the state to do that? Is it the ayahuasca? Did I say it right?
I have friends that have done it.
Yeah.
The ayahuasca journeys.
Yeah.
I'm actually interested in wanting to do that.
Yeah.
I really do. I really want to see,
I know one person that did it. One of my best friends, his wife, Adriana, she's in like the little mental health world. So she'd actually be somebody else that y'all just could link up with, just because, having strong Black women in the mental health space. Mm-hmm. But she went out of town and did it too. And I went over there like a week after, and I mean, she was just telling about her experience. She said it was something like she had never experienced before. Matter of fact, I watched, and it wasn't just ayahuasca that was on there. I watched a 60-minute special a few weeks ago. It might have been an old one, but it was talking about the trauma, helping the PTSD of the soldiers in the military. A lot of them, it was every range. It was usually like 30s to probably like 50s and 60-year-old guys. They took them on this experience. It was only one person out of the whole crew of like 20 who couldn't take the experience, but everybody up there was just saying how much it helped, just help. It was like, it's like a reset for the brain. And that's what I keep hearing, is just the reset of the brain. I know the ayahuasca is stronger than, the ones that do the mushroom experience, but the ayahuasca one seems like it's pretty tough, pretty heavy, because it's really feel like everybody's saying it's like that out of body experience and that full, complete, I guess. Some people calling it a reincarnation of their body. Yeah. So how have you seen that, or have you had anybody that
I haven't had anybody do it, but I'm interested.
Yeah.
I have friends of mine that have done it, and they said it is, something like an out of body experience is what they've said to me as well too. It's also like a purging and detox.
Yep. That's what I heard
as
too.
Well, because it's like you're finally able to kind of get to who you really are as a person before all of this stuff started here, before your mom and dad said you're supposed to do this and all those things like that. What is your essence of a human being? What is the essence? What is the reason why you're here, so to speak, and being able to go ahead and say, hey, you know what? Because of course we have multiple purposes, but to be able to go ahead and tap in and be like, okay, what is my purpose of being here? Being able to tap in and say, hey, okay, I'm here because I need to help educate others. I'm here to show people love, whatever, the case may be. But then it's like, then it breaks down into, okay, well, what are your interests? And then kind of, going from there.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Great. That's interesting stuff.
I was going back to back with my random questions.
Okay, I
No,
like
that's
random.
No, that was really good. I have kind of had one that's kind of off topic as well. A lot of times that we see the cross between crime and mental health.
Mhm.
And a lot of times mental health is mislabeled as someone being a criminal. Could you speak to a little bit more about that and maybe some of the things that we could do to, prevent folks from going to jail that maybe have a mental health issue and really need the treatment? Maybe you could go a little bit more in depth. Either one of you.
Absolutely. I have a personal story. So I have a brother that was 18 years old that he's in jail for a double homicide, wrong place, wrong time situation. At that time, we had a lot of trauma. I was young, so now I can kind of look back at that. Like mom was on drugs, grandmother was on drugs. I was staying with an aunt, mom was homeless, a lot of these different factors, right? But looking at him and how he's improved and how he's still progressing, it's only God that's keeping his mind, for one. He's been in jail for about 15 years. I was about 11 or 12. That's one thing. But two, when I was able to really sit back and reflect as I did my work, so that's where that other therapist come in, right? I started doing that trauma work. I noticed it was just like, he's traumatized. That was primary and secondary. You're watching your grandmother do it, then your mom's doing it, then we're separated, and he felt like he was an older sibling, so he always he raised me also. So he was raising me, he potty trained me, to just see that, and I'm like, you don't even supposed to be in there. Like, he has a degree right now, never got in any trouble, probably talk intellectually better than anybody out here, but that's how he always was. It was just that he had to follow he had to make a normal when things weren't normal for him. Also my cousins was in it too, but he had to make a normal where he was living. Like, if I don't do it, I'm gonna look like a punk. A lot of that stigma of like, black men got to be strong, we got to be hard. He was supposed to go fishing that day, and he got a call and they were like, this is what I'm gonna do, and he just like, oh, okay. He didn't really have a choice. And so that's a lot of it too, like that choice part, the lack of that. I don't remember. I remember my grandmother having a psychiatrist. I'm still curious. Like, she passed on, and I'm like, wonder what her diagnosis was. Like, was it mental health that kind of passed along the family and stuff? Another part of it too is like, I didn't see it other than her though. Like, that was something that wasn't talked about. We were in kind of where Seaford Elementary School is at. That's where we live, on that 14th and Juneau area. And I'm like, wasn't that many houses. It wasn't really access to no programs over there. So he probably didn't hear. He only played basketball at Martin Luther King Park. And so that's a big part of it too, is like, you don't know what you don't know. So part of it is that lack of education with it. Like, now I can see it because I got saved. I had a lot of workers and all of these people that were there for me, but it can be pretty complicated and complex. So a lot of it is that they don't understand. It's a lack of education, but it's also your upbringing. So I would say that that's kind of like my personal story, but what I've noticed even working with minority men primarily. Yeah.
No doubt. You have a great story. And I do want to just shout you out for just everything you've been doing. You as well. I met you it's been about several years now or so. And I've just been watching both of y'all grow in y'all spaces. So I just want to shout y'all out for just, overall just coming on here and just being open and sharing with the community. Again, 414-444-5253. We're going to take a break real quick because I think Jermaine told me I got to take a break. So we'll be at Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices again with Shaquan Jefferson and Sarita Valmont. Did I say that right, Sarita?
Yes.
Okay. They are from the Key to the Streets Foundation and Chronically Resilient. I am chronically resilient. And we'll be right back via Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices.
Back. This is Be a Voice with Wisconsin Voices on WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. We're having a wonderful conversation about mental health today. And I think we have a caller calling in. Caller, go ahead. Caller, you're on the air.
Oh, yes. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I apologize. First of all, I just want to say I want to thank the real voices of Wisconsin. Excuse me if I got that backwards or something.
Yeah, you got it backwards, twisted, flipped over, all type
of Hey, Brian, but I want to thank you and Joe for being there, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sir.
This is Mr. Ward.
Excuse me?
Who is this?
JT.
JT? Mr. JT. Hey, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. And the reason why I'm hiring that Joe, because we are federal veterans.
That's right.
Joe, hey, man, thank you for your service and thank you for what you're doing now. And to the ladies there, I want to thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for being there and sharing about mental health. Now, my question is to everybody there in the studio, talking about mental health. Now, as you know, before Donald Trump got back into the White House, you had to deal with mental health, especially in the communities that had less resources, and you was trying your best to deal with that real trauma issue. But now, since Donald Trump is back, and everybody called it being Trumpified, stuff like that, taking away resources and everything else to that did assist what you're trying to do and everything else, taking away resources and stuff like that and cutting programs down and all that kind of stuff and shutting things down, even though you still are there being strong and trying to do the best you can to deal with the mental health issues. But, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people, especially young and old, after going through the Donald Trump scary thing and having things taken away from them that they had to help them out, and organizations like yourself trying to assist us, what do you think about what's going on? Because, of course, I'm not envy. Even though I love what you're doing, I appreciate that respectfully. I'm just saying it. But for real, we have these resources taken away. It's going to make your job more difficult. So I don't know. I just called in to give you some kudos and give you some props and say thank you so very much, because I know that's not an easy answer. I guess I just answered my own question. you know. But yeah, I just want to say thank you all for being there, and thank you so very much for trying to do the best you can. But you know it's going to get more difficult. But I hope you have the strength to keep on keeping on. Okay. So much love to y'all. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you, JT.
Take care.
Take care.
God bless you. That brings up a really important question. You know, sometimes a lot of people will find themselves doom scrolling through social media or watching the news, and it's just sometimes things are depressing, which you see on TV. What are some tips for folks out there that may find themselves in those situations, and what can they do to help improve their mental health throughout all this?
Build your support. Find what makes you happy. So this is a season, especially like he said, with all the legislative stuff, I try not to pay attention to it unless I really have to. If I see something flagging, some stuff we have to, right? But the best way not to avoid it, because you don't want to do that. I don't want to promote that. You want to kind of take it what it is, but just finding a light even through your darkest hours, whatever that looks like: support, running, exercise, art, finding people that you can talk to about those things, really just like searching you and what you need and what you can do. So like a primary part is like eggs is $10.
Right.
So a lot
that's
of
a mental health issue, huh? Look, I've been seeing it.
Like,
people going 200 miles for eggs.
But it's like researching those resources. What's out there? Do you go to a food pantry? Do your church has something where you could kind of like, this is the time to really exercise our expertise and strengths. And so that's my main advice for people to build where their expertise and spread that. So I have a lot of people on my phone. I always crack a joke. I was like, I get annoyed every time somebody like, hey, can you send me something about this? I got some on my record. I need something expunged. Can you do this? But I'm okay with sharing that, because what you don't know, you don't know. But I have that, because knowledge is free. Why not share it? That's being selfish if you don't share it, right? And so even outside outside the therapy realm, just I'm a support to people regardless thereof. And I have the people for me as well, because I don't know everything. So like I learned something from this here therapist here. Like I'm like, I want to do that. Okay, what's that? Like always just kind of keep that mind rolling and learning and finding alternatives. You got to. Plan A is not going to always work. So that's the way to think about it. Always have a plan B, C, and other things to accommodate your needs.
And I'll even, go into what you were saying as well too. And I'm a coach too, because I don't want the state to come get me. So I'm certified. Okay, I'm certified. But definitely looking at like boundaries, also to turn off notifications. I only get news notifications if it's like breaking news type situations. But other than that, it's like I'm not sitting there like, letting the news basically dictate how things are going to go for me, setting up, once again, going back to like setting up a routine, being able to go ahead and say, hey, you know what, this is the time that I'm allotting for myself to actually just process things that's going on in my brain. And if I need assistance processing, then being able to go ahead and say, hey, what are the resources I have available to me at this time? Like, going back to like the mindfulness and different things like that, just really having what works for you available to you. And once you have that, then I feel like that makes things a lot more, I'm not going to definitely say easier, because it's not, there's no such thing as easy when it comes to that, but at least it's giving you some alternatives that can actually benefit you in the long run. And it is a practice. It's one of those things. It's not something that you're going to automatically. I have oftentimes have people say, oh, I can't meditate because, and I'm like, well, what do you mean you can't meditate? Like, let's break down what it is. Because some people don't know what meditation actually is.
Yeah.
They think that's supposed to be sit down, your brain's supposed to go quiet. No, your brain does not go quiet. It's just being able to go ahead though and actually kind of being able to listen to your body and seeing what your body actually needs. And I often say to people, even if you just take 5 minutes and just sit down and just say, okay, say to yourself, what do I need right now? What can help me in this moment? It might be so simple as I just need a sip of water because I'm feeling dehydrated, or I'm like, noticing something that's going on. Okay, get your water. It just can be that. But I often say, like, go ahead and at least give yourself 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, that's real. That's why I say I take that time. I call it like my little recalibration time. I take my recalibration time, and people know I'm quick with that. Family know, my friends know, I will duck off quick, and just be at the crib. And I'll take that time for myself because it helps me, hone, just zone in on those thoughts and stuff that I have. So
yeah, make sure you communicate that though too. Because then we get worried about you sometimes if you duck
that
off.
part. Yeah.
So that's the part you got to make sure that you communicate that you're about to duck off as other things too.
It won't be too long, I promise you. So as we're about to wrap up, what are some ways that folks get in contact with you if they got questions, anything on their mind? Shaquan, Sarita, go ahead and tell the people how they can get with you.
Yes, so we have a link for Black clinicians. You can look me up there. You can also look up Shaquan Jefferson. Even if you Google me, all of my information and social media pops up. So that's spelled SHAQUAN, last name Jefferson with 2 F. So if you look it up, all of my social media platforms will pop up with my email and contact information.
Cool. Thank you. All right.
And then for me, on Facebook, I'm Sarita Valmont. So my name, on IG, I am Chronically Resilient. My website is I'mChronicallyResilient.com. Also, too, I am going to be actually part of an event, the 5th annual informational for Lupus Has No Face, and that's going to be happening on May 3rd.
Shout out Savannah Burks.
Yes,
shout out Savannah
please,
Burks.
Make sure that you go ahead and register.
Yeah.
LupusHasNoFace.com. I'm going to be one of the, one of the people that are going to be speakers that day, and it's going to be talking about understanding symptoms, treatments, and living well with lupus.
Nice. We appreciate y'all. Thank you so much, Sarita, Shaquan. Thank you. You're on Being Voice Radio, Wisconsin Voices, WNOB 860, 106.5 FM. Ladies, y'all have a great day. Milwaukee, have a great day. God bless y'all. Be safe. We'll see y'all next week.